From beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, it is the Neglected News Report. I'm your co-host, Scott Mitchell, along with my brother Kevin.
Good evening, lovers of freedom.
We are here every Monday from 9 p.m. till 10 p.m. Eastern, 6 to 7 Pacific. And we are here to report the news that you won't hear anywhere else and discuss it. Anyway, we're going to pick things up a little bit from last week, I believe, but not dwell on it too much. I think that's the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll kind of free-lib it.
Yeah.
Ad-lib it.
Free-lib it?
Ad-lib it. Free something.
There's nothing free about being a lib. Anyway, last week we were talking about the New World Order. And Kevin had a lot of stuff to get through. He got through most of it.
Do you want me to talk about Obama's trip to Mexico?
Yeah, let's talk about the trip to Mexico.
Well, that kind of...
Oh, wait. Coincidental, it was during Cinco de Mayo weekend.
You think it was planned that way, or...
Oh, by the way, real quick, guys, if you get a chance to see this picture on Facebook, it'll crack you up. It shows a Mexican guy with like, you know the old Mexican stereotype of the bandito with the pistoleros and the ammunition belts crisscrossed across his front
with the Star Wars.
Right. But there's one of a guy with Star Wars, stormtrooper rifles, and the picture says, with Star Wars Day giving way to Cinco de Mayo, ladies and gentlemen, Juan Solo. I love it. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, Obama was in Mexico this last week, and he was doing what he does best, talking down his country and his people. He's really good at that.
Can I correct you on something? We're not his people. The American people. He thinks we're his people.
He's already brainwashing me. I'm already getting used to being a sheep.
He thinks we're his people. We're his subjects. Like Mel Brooks in History of the World Part 1. They're my people. I'm their sovereign. They love me.
This first article. Now this is news and opinion. So this is from WorldNet Daily. A lot of you out there might already have your own opinions about WorldNet Daily, but it's an article reporting on something Rush Limbaugh said, which I don't report on very often. In fact, I don't even really listen to Rush anymore. I'm done with the left-right Republican Democrat paradigm. I'm just not into it anymore. I'm not even. The more time goes by, the more I believe that there's not a whole lot of difference between the two.
Although you have to say something about Rush, though. Rush is kind of getting away from that paradigm more than a lot of them are.
Yes, he's opening up a little bit. He's looking. I think he's beginning to see that the powers that really control things don't always emanate just from Washington, D.C. Well, anyway, I'm going to read this article. It's from the WorldNet Daily, and it's about President Obama's trip to Mexico. President Obama is sending secret coded messages to Mexicans, letting citizens south of the border know that he agrees with their contention that much of the southwestern U.S. rightfully belongs to Mexico, claims radio host Rush Limbaugh. They call that Aslan? Is that Aslan?
Aslan. They're also
La Raza calls it.
They're also known as the Reconquistas.
Reconquistas, yeah. So he's. The thrust of this article is that he's giving fuel to this feeling. Last week, Obama addressed students at the Anthropology Museum in Mexico City, saying, quote, "Our attitudes sometimes are trapped in old stereotypes. Some Americans only see the Mexico that is depicted in sensational headlines of violence and border crossings. And let's admit it, some Mexicans think that America disrespects Mexico or thinks that America is trying to impose itself on Mexican sovereignty or just wants to wall ourselves off. And in both countries, such distortions create misunderstandings that make it harder for us to move forward together. So I've come to Mexico because I think it's time for us to put the old mindsets aside. It's time to recognize new realities, including the impressive progress of today's Mexico." Limbaugh says he was at first puzzled by Obama's statement that America was imposing its sovereignty on Mexico before it finally struck him. This is Limbaugh talking. This sovereignty business, this is significant. This is not a throwaway. That's a dog whistle, he said. It's a huge dog whistle to radicalize young Hispanic voters. What he did was send signals to that voting bloc beneath the radar, because most people are not going to understand what is sovereignty business. That bloc that's underneath the radar, Telemundo, Univision, he's telling them that he agrees with them that California should still be in Mexico and that New Mexico should still be in Mexico. Limbaugh indicated Obama counts on the mainstream of America not hearing or understanding what he's saying in speeches meant for foreigners. In other words, this is me talking. In other words, he's speaking to the Mexican population, and he's not talking to America, which is,
big surprise.
Yeah.
Shaka.
And he goes on to say, but Limbaugh does. We just blew his cover decoding this, he continued. I won't be surprised if we get some blowback on this. They'll start calling me a bunch of names and accusing me of making things up or accusing me of harboring hate for all these people. Accusing me of, once again, Limbaugh goes off on an extreme tangent, expect something like that because this is huge. There are radicalized Mexicans who believe California is still theirs, particularly Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Arizona. Let me repeat that. There are radicalized Mexicans who believe California is still theirs, particularly Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, radicals. He was speaking, and it didn't come off. It doesn't read very well, so excuse me. And Obama's just fueled him. He just told him he agrees with him. Limbaugh called the coded messages a big deal, adding, he didn't talk about Mexico immigration policy. He didn't talk about Mexico's need to reform its government, its socialist policies. He didn't talk about how America helps Mexico financially. He didn't talk about how we feed and clothe and educate, provide health care to even those from Mexico who are illegally in the United States. The sovereignty business, if you wanted to go to an extreme, you could almost say that Obama has it actually backwards, that it's Mexico imposing its sovereignty on us. Interesting, huh? Because we are being made to feed, clothe, and house and provide health care for all its citizens. Is Mexico doing that for American citizens? Try to go down there and become a Mexican. You can't do it. There are immigration laws. You don't even want to mess with it, folks. You don't want to mess with it. They don't play games with immigration.
They've got the laws we should have.
Well, they actually do, if you've ever seen them before.
Yeah, I have.
When has a president of the United States ever attacked American sovereignty? I think this is a first. I am not aware of any president ever attacking America's sovereignty. And in coded language, which is what this was, he's winking and nodding and dog whistling to the radicalized, not all of them, the radicalized Hispanics. Now he begins imitating Obama. I get it. We should never have taken Mexico. It's really yours. I get it. We've been mean. We've been imposing our way too long. Time for a new mindset. In one final political dig, Limbaugh noted, by the way, the warmonger president who took Mexico, James Polk, was a Democrat. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Again, Limbaugh goes back to the Republican Democrat paradigm, which is becoming more and more irrelevant.
Well, unfortunately, though, that's still how the majority of people in this country look at it. Unfortunately, it's kind of a rough balancing act, because you'll get people like Glenn Beck. He tries to stay away from the party thing. He has a hard time sometimes too, though.
Well, it's hard. I mean, because sometimes the Democrats are so far left that you just can't ignore them. You know,
right.
And when I really get into the left-right paradigm is when the left gets loony and when the right gets weak-kneed. That's when I really get, excuse my language, that's when I really get pissed. Because the Republicans have plenty of opportunities. There's a lot of red meat out there that they could be attacking that they don't. And that's why we're here.
The Republican Party doesn't have the killer instinct.
In the way that this, I'm going to explain why I'm reading this article, and I have another one right afterwards, which is even worse than this.
Oh, wait. In the interest of full disclosure, though, Kevin's a registered independent. I'm still a registered Republican only because I've been too darn lazy to go and re-register as an independent.
I couldn't do it anymore. I just had enough. When John McCain got elected again, we're here in Arizona. I've been voting. I voted for the first time in 1980. I voted for Ronald Reagan.
Me too.
Yeah, it was my first election. I was 19 years old.
I was 21.
And ever since, John McCain, we've never had any choice. We had J.D. Hayworth run against him last time. He got outspent 5-1. He couldn't make it on the Republican ticket. We have no choice. Him and Lindsey Graham, my God, talk about a bunch of limp-wristed Republicans that need to go, but we can't get out. So make a long story short, that's why I'm no longer Republican. I can't do it.
Those two are like Beavis and Butthead. Shut up, Beavis.
Okay.
No, or Laverne and Shirley. They're like.
Well, anyway, here's kind of a explanation as to why I'm talking about this. I read this article, and I'm going to read the next one, and then go into the New World Order, is because they are relevant, because we're seeing the borders start to disintegrate, and it's not by accident. It's done on purpose. I started really questioning things under George W. Bush, the main thing that I started questioning was coming from Arizona. We see just never-ending lines and non-stop lines of illegal immigrants, Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans, whatever.
Just go to a Walmart on a weekend.
Yeah. I mean, everything's in Spanish and English here. And I started saying, okay, well, that's not a hard thing to stop. We're fighting two fronts. We're fighting a war in Afghanistan. We're fighting a war in Iraq. We fight all over the world. Yet we don't have the backbone to stop how many miles separates Texas from California? What are we talking?
Well, 3 states.
500-600 miles, maybe.
Oh no, there's more than that.
Is there that? I don't know.
Because there's Arizona and New Mexico between.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot. However, we never even.
Well, no, it's about to the California border or to what, L.A. Because when we moved out here,
San Diego to.
When we moved out here from back east, our last night on the road was from Amarillo, Texas to Phoenix. It was 1,000 miles. So you're talking probably close to 1,500 miles.
Okay. All right, so we'll say it's 15,000, whatever. I mean, we have the manpower to do it. We don't have the will to do it. And so it got me to thinking, okay, well, this is where all my thinking changed, because conventional thinking, common sense thinking didn't work anymore, because it was so obvious what the cure was, what the problem was, and what the cure was. The cure was to keep the illegals from coming over the border. But we had no will. And why did we have no will? We had no will because there's a grand plan there. There's a grand plan to strip America of its sovereignty. They really they're going to start with they're going to start breaking the world into different blocks. You're going to see Canada, the United States, and Mexico become one. And this is the first step. And George W. Bush is part of it. And that's why I quit becoming a Republican. He knows exactly what he's doing. His father was the first one to proudly exclaim the New World Order.
He was the first one to say it openly for a major world leader, yeah.
And there will be. Remember when he said, we're going to have a new world order, and trust me, there will be, or something like that. But anyway, I want to go on to this next article, which is back to Obama again in Mexico, where he blames U.S. for gun smuggling in Mexico. Of course, he doesn't mention anything about Fast and Furious.
Nope.
For those of you who don't know what Fast and Furious was basically our government smuggling. No, basically they did. Holder never refuted the fact that we didn't send guns down to Mexico, and they were responsible for killing hundreds and hundreds of Mexican citizens, by the way. President Barack Obama told the Mexican people today that the United States is partly to blame for Mexico's drug violence because of illegal drugs and gun smuggling. However, he did not mention the gun smuggling undertaken by his own administration under the DOJ's Department of Justice's Operation Fast and Furious. Speaking to Mexican university students, Obama pointed a finger at his own country, as usual. You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of the mom who's been taking care of kids all day long and just threaten them all day. Wait till your dad gets home, and the minute the old man walks through the door, she starts unloading on him. You know what your kids did today? They finger painted with poop on the wall, and they did this, they did that, and that's what Obama does. He goes down to Mexico, and all he does is he badmouths his own people. Well, I hate I used that term again, didn't I?
Yeah.
He badmouths
the
American people. So anyway, he goes on to say he pointed a finger at his own country. Drug-fueled violence in Mexico is not entirely the fault of the Mexican people, he said. Instead, the United States shares the blame because much of the violence is centered around the Americans' demand for illegal drugs and the fact that guns are smuggled into Mexico from the United States. So what he just said there was, he said, if it wasn't for the damn Second Amendment and our unquenchable thirst for drugs, everything would be just fine. In this relationship, he goes on, there is no senior partner or junior partner. We are two equal partners, two sovereign nations that must work together in mutual interest and mutual respect, Obama said. He also vowed to jail gun smugglers, though did not mention any members of his own administration.
I was gonna say.
That is funny. He goes on to say, we recognize that most of the guns used to commit violence here in Mexico come from the United States. We'll keep increasing the pressure on the gun traffickers who... Does he mean legal gun salesmen? Or I don't know what he means by that. Gun traffickers who bring illegal guns into Mexico, and will keep putting these criminals where they belong, behind bars. Far from pursuing the smugglers in Operation Fast and Furious, President Obama, over documents related to the judgment list, asserted executive privilege over documents related to the operation last year in an attempted bar congressional investigations. Fast and Furious was a gun-walking operation out of the Phoenix ATF office, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms office. Agents allowed guns to fall into the hands of Mexican drug cartels and did nothing to trace or intercept the weapons. It started in the fall of 2009 and only ended in December 2010, when Border Patrol agent Brian Terry was murdered in Arizona. The guns at the scene were traced to Fast and Furious. Over 300 deaths in Mexico are linked to Fast and Furious guns, and hundreds are still missing. No one within the DOJ has been held accountable, and no one has revealed who came up with Fast and Furious and who approved it. Evidence shows that Fast and Furious was used as a way to promote tighter gun control laws. There is also plenty of evidence that shows knowledge of the operation went into the upper echelons of the DOJ and other departments. Breitbart News' Joel Pollack reported that Representative Darrell Issa and Senator Charles Grassley requested communications between the White House, State Department, and DOJ pertaining to Fast and Furious. In March 2009, about 6 months before Fast and Furious launched, then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told Mexico almost the exact same thing that Obama said today. She said, our insatiable demand for illegal drugs fuels the drug trade. Well, again, they're always blaming. This is just disgusting. Again, she said, our insatiable demand for illegal drugs fuels the drug trade, Mrs. Clinton said, using unusually blunt language. Our inability to prevent weapons from being illegally smuggled across the border to arm these criminals causes the deaths of police officers, soldiers, and civilians. Again, this is an attack on the Second Amendment, plain and simple. That's what all this is. They could give a rat's patootie about dead Mexicans in Mexico. They could care less. What they want to do is they want to take the guns out of the hands of law-abiding Americans.
They could care less about the fact that the drug cartels are coming 50 to 100 miles within U.S. borders and killing Americans either.
Yes, there are signs with 50 miles inside the Arizona border which warns our citizens, American citizens, not to go beyond a certain point because it's dangerous to do so. And
law officers won't even go there. They won't.
And they're afraid. To finish this article, Obama repeated Clinton's sentiments. He said, this war is being waged with guns purchased not here but in the United States. More than 90% of the guns recovered in Mexico come from the United States, many from gun shops that line our shared border. Obama forgets evidence proves the majority of guns in Mexico do not come from America, but have been only 17% have been traced back to America. If Obama wants to stop gun smuggling to Mexico, he needs to start his own administration. he needs to start with his own administration. So again, it's just another example. If you were to listen to this guy, you would think that he was like Khrushchev talking about America during the Cold War when he banged his shoe on the table at the United Nations.
We will bury you.
We will bury you. This is him talking about his own citizens. I mean, as an American, how would you feel about that?
I'm pissed.
Well, yeah, but there's not enough of us out here that are pissed.
And it's because a lot of the people don't know or don't care.
Well, I think it's the former, not the latter. I think they don't know. I think they're ignorant. Mm-hmm. I mean, this stuff...
but they don't know because they don't care. What have I said all along? As long as they have their cable TV, their MTV, their salad shooter, and whatever...
Bread and circus.
You know? Exactly.
Bread and circus.
You know, this is why that ancient historical event known as Benghazi, I was being sarcastic, for the benefit of, what's his name again? White House press secretary? I forget his name all the time.
Oh, the little boy. What is, what is his name? Oh boy, I can see his face.
Carney.
Yeah, Carney.
Anyway, I just forgot his name. I just went blank.
Yeah, me
anyway,
too. It's a long day.
Yeah, I mean, it's he's referring to Benghazi as an ancient, as old news, you know, kind of like things that happened during the Bush administration you keep blaming your misfortunes on. Come on. Jake Carney is his name. Jay Carney.
Jake Carney.
Yeah, but, and we'll
Carney, small hand, smells like cabbage. That's an insight. Not too many people understand that one.
I'm not sure if I do either.
That's from Austin Powers. Remember Carney's? Small hands smell like cabbage.
Oh, okay, I get it now. But we'll see. Wednesday are the Benghazi hearings, and we'll see what happens.
Okay. Do you want me to go on to more to more New World Order stuff, or what do you want to do?
Let's go over what I've got real quick here, and you know, you're wondering why. We know why these things are happening. It's because there are people that want to control the world. Why do they want to control the world?
Because they're Luciferians.
Anyway, I am going to get a little preachy a little bit. Not real preachy. I'm going to recite some scripture here to you. Just a short passage. Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And I'm going to tear this apart word by word, going to the original Greek. Yeah, I said the original Greek. Okay, for we wrestle not against flesh. The word here used is sarx. It's basically literally the flesh. It's not speaking figuratively. It's literal of the flesh. Literally the flesh, the skin on the body. Okay? And the reason why they're using that, well, they also use blood. The word here for blood is haima. It's of uncertain derivation. Blood, literally of men or animals, figuratively the juice of grapes, or specifically the atoning blood of Christ. By implication, bloodshed. So we wrestle not against skin and bones, let's say, or blood and blood, but against principalities. Principality comes from the Greek word arche, which is basically a magistrate, a power, a principle, a rule. Okay, for we wrestle not against flesh and bones and blood, but against magistrates and powers. In other words, rulers, basically.
That wasn't the King James version, though.
This is the King James version.
Well, mine says something different. Go ahead.
Okay. Against principalities, against powers. The word for powers is exousia. Powers, which is mastery, authority, jurisdiction, you know, you get the idea. Strength. Against the rulers, the word for rulers here is Cosmocrator.
Cosmo Kramer?
Cosmocrator. It's basically a world ruler, an epithet for Satan. So, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against powers, rulers, magistrates, powers, against the rulers. The word here is an epithet for Satan. So against Satan, the ruler of the darkness of this world. The darkness is...
And ironically, he was known as the angel, the light, the angel of light when he was in heaven.
And basically the word here for darkness is shadiness, obscurity.
The occult.
Literally or figuratively. Exactly, yeah.
Well, the occult means the unseen.
So basically, we're not warring against physical beings. We're warring against spirits, evil spirits, obscure spirits, that kind of stuff of this world. And the world here for world is Aion. It can stand for a messianic period, present or future, an age, eternal or forever, or the world.
And when you start, excuse me, Scott, but when you start looking at the world this way, it actually begins to make more sense. Because if you think on this plane, if you think in worldly terms, in manly term, not manly, but human terms, what's going on doesn't make sense. But when you think about it on this plane with Lucifer, Satan. It begins to make more sense when we'll talk real quick about how Lucifer fell.
We also wrestle against spiritual wickedness in high places. The word here for spiritual is pneumatikos. It means ethereal or demonically, a spirit, supernatural, or regenerate, religious, whatever. Basically is what it stands for. Again, spiritual wickedness, the word for wickedness in here is paniria, depravity. That is specifically malice and spiritual wickedness in high places. And this is where I thought it was kind of significant. It's epuranios is for the word high.
Pleasure?
No, epuranios, and that means above the sky, celestial, heaven. So we're battling against spiritual wickedness in heaven, high places.
Well, yeah. Yeah, there's battles. There's three planes. I think there's 3 levels, 2 levels of heaven or 3 levels. There's the one where God and Christ reside.
Never heard of that.
Well, yeah. Start reading. And there's a middle one where Lucifer and his bad guys hang out. He doesn't live here on Earth yet. He hasn't been cast down, into hell yet. He's
okay.
He's still, well, we might have a difference there.
Well, it also says that Jesus, before he resurrected, went to hell to preach to the people, the ones in bondage. So hell does exist. It did then, it does now. I think what that refers to is, with God doesn't live a linear existence like we do from second to second. He lives it all at once. Everything's all at once. So the battle in heaven that caused Satan to be cast out.
Who cast him out?
Well, it was by God's order, but it was by Michael, the archangel.
Michael kicked his butt.
And I think that's what that refers to, because in God's eyes, it all happens. It's all at once. I mean, it's all played out at once for him. So, I mean, God, he's eternal. No beginning, no end.
So I guess what we're trying to get to here is trying to make sense in a world that makes no sense as to, what's really driving man to do what he does. I mean, what makes a man like Obama do, what he, make the decision basically to destroy our economy, destroy, everything we hold dear in this country. What would motivate him? Is he an evil person? Does he just, does he want to put us in bondage? Does he want us to replace our wonderful system of capitalism with that of communism does he want to do that because he really thinks it's a really bitchin' form of government?
I think so. I'm serious. He's a Marxist.
Okay, but so were the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers who started the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. They instituted. They were the ones the catalysts that started the Russian Revolution of 1917. By the way, and one day I'll get into that. But do they believe in Marxism? No, not for them. They don't. They believe in it for the people. It's a way to keep the people under control. And why would people want to keep other people? Why would one person want to keep another person in bondage, other than the fact that possibly they were motivated by not so good forces? This is where we get into Satanism. This is where we get into Luciferianism. This is what motivates these people to do what they do? What would motivate Stalin and Mao and Pol Pot to murder tens and tens of millions of people? I mean, that's heinous. That's terrible. In the name of communism.
By the same token, on a lesser scale, what would cause Dr. Kermit Gosnell to kill as many babies as he did?
There you go.
It's not too dissimilar.
Now, a lot of modern day thinkers would like to chalk it all up to, psychological things like, well, his mother didn't like him or whatever.
Bad toilet training.
Bad toilet training. He was just a bad dude like Genghis Khan, or as John Kerry would say, Genghis Khan.
Exactly.
But
it's a chasm. It's a chasm.
When you start thinking of the world as the finite world here on Earth, the physical world, and a spiritual world, then it begins to make more sense when you realize that there really is a spiritual battle, and that basically Lucifer is really pissed off at God, and he doesn't like us. He basically God chose us as his favorite son. And it really made Lucifer mad, and he threw a tantrum. So he's never gotten over that. And a lot of the things that happen bad in this world are due to him. What do you think, Scott?
It's also because of bad decisions by people. I'm not one that prescribes to the theory with Christians that everything bad that befalls you is because of Satan. I think it's because a lot of it has to do with you being a dumbass.
Oh, you rob a grocery store, yeah, but I'm talking about on the big level. I'm talking about, when
big picture.
when like the Russian Revolution. I'm talking World War I, World War II. I'm talking about big things. No, I'm wise enough to understand that. But I really do believe that there's a spiritual realm that really guides us, and it starts to make more sense when you start looking at it this way.
You got to realize what a bubble we live in this country, because I don't know if you know this or not, but liberty and freedom is the exception, the large exception in this world. I mean, that's why. I've heard a few people say, "Well, American exceptionalism." I don't want to be that arrogant as to say we're exceptional because we are the exception in this world. I hate to say it because I'll sound arrogant, but we're the only thing holding the gates of hell right now from opening wide open.
Well,
in a figurative sense.
Here's another. What can I say? This is another article that'll make you really, really feel good. It's it's written by.
By the way, Kevin's a blast at parties too.
Yeah, the Grim Reaper. This is by the American Dream. It's a site dedicated to waking people up and getting them to realize that the American Dream is quickly becoming the American Nightmare. It's titled, "Yes, They Really Do Want to Reduce the Population." 22 shocking population control quotes from the global elite that will make you want to lose your lunch. It goes on, most Americans have absolutely no idea, but a dark philosophy is spreading like wildfire among the global elite. This philosophy is an obsessive belief that humanity has become a cancer that is destroying the earth. And this is where you start seeing the environmental movement, Greenpeace, all that. There are now large numbers of global leaders that are convinced that the exploding population of the world has become like a virus or a plague, and that it must be combated as such. In fact, it would be very difficult to understate just how obsessed many members of the global elite are with population control. The United Nations puts out position papers about it. Universities have entire courses dedicated to it. Radical population control advocates have been appointed to some of the highest political positions in the world. And some of the wealthiest people on the planet get together just to talk about it. And that's the real, the wealthiest people. And there's a reason for that. Those who believe in this philosophy are constantly talking about the need for, quote-unquote, increased access to abortion, contraception, and other, quote-unquote, quote-unquote, family planning services. But even with all these efforts, the population of the world is still expanding, and those who believe in this population control philosophy are getting nervous. So just who are these people among the global elite who believe so fervently about in population control? Some of the names you are about to read here might totally shock you. Many of them are some of the biggest names in the world. For example, Prince Charles gave a major speech just the other day in which he bemoaned the rapidly expanding world population. He said, "I could have chosen Mumbai, Cairo, or Mexico City. Wherever you look, the world's population is increasing fast. It goes up by the equivalent of the entire population of the United Kingdom every year, which means that this poor planet of ours, which already struggles to sustain 6.8 billion people, will somehow have to support over 9 billion people within 50 years. Many among the global elite believe that the growing world population is the number one problem facing the world. Many of them are absolutely convinced that overpopulation is the primary cause of climate change, is ruining our environment, and threatens to turn the entire globe into one gigantic third world slum."
And if you put too many of them on a Pacific island all at one time, it's going to tip over.
And by the way, these are the same people that control our banking, control the wars we fight in, control a lot of things. So, dun 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 dun. Of course, all that is nonsense, but this is what they actually believe. And the scary thing is that most of them are in positions of power and influence where they can actually do quite a bit to advance their insidious agenda. The following are 22 shocking population control quotes from the global elite that will make you want to lose your lunch. And I've actually seen a lot of these on YouTube. You can, everything I'm telling you today, you go do your own research.
Don't take our word for it.
I mean, there's one, Bill Gates, that to this day I can't interpret it any other way than what he said. So, if you get a chance, go look up. He's number 2 on this list. So, this is number 1. What would it take to accelerate fertility decline in the least developed countries? This was the UN Population Division policy brief from 2009. This is Bill Gates speaking. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's heading to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%.
What do you mean a good job on vaccines? By, getting rid of them?
I don't know. And if you see it, if you YouTube it, that's exactly what he says. And he doesn't explain himself. He doesn't... And I've heard that he has backtracked on it and tried to, come back and say that, well, that's not what he meant.
And I've been wondering all these years since he quit Microsoft, why all of a sudden, you're talking about a Class A number 1 nerd.
Well,
leaving the work he loves.
He actually isn't a nerd. He's not a computer geek. He's a businessman. He paid $50,000 for MS-DOS.
That's
that
true,
dude.
yeah.
He's not...
From a mom and pop shop in Southern California.
Yeah, he's not... He's just a ruthless businessman. And his father actually was...
Paul Allen was more of the...
Yes, the geek.
The geek, yeah.
His father was a bigwig in Planned Parenthood, which kind of accounts for his fascination with, killing people.
Bill Gates never finished college. He dropped out after his freshman year at Harvard. And they formed Microsoft in Albuquerque later that year.
Well, that was a good move.
Yeah, I'll have to say.
This is number 3. Barack Obama's top science advisor, John P. Holdren. Boy, if you don't know about this guy, you ought to get to know who this guy is. This guy is a fruitcake. He and Paul Ehrlich, the population bomb from the 1970s.
Remember that?
You want to talk about?
him.
They were talking about killing people off 40 years ago. Here's what he has to say. A program of sterilizing women after their second or third child, despite the relatively greater difficulty of the operation than a vasectomy, might be easier to implement than trying to sterilize men. The development of a long-term sterilizing capsule that could be implanted under the skin and removed when pregnancy is desired opens additional possibilities for coercive fertility control. The capsule could be implemented at puberty and might be removable with official permission for a limited number of births. You hear what he said? Coercive fertility control. He's talking about humans like they're cattle. Mm-hmm. Coercive fertility control. Look at he looks at you like you're a piece of chattel, cattle, goat, pig, sheep, whatever you want to call it.
Sounds like something Aldous Huxley would have written.
Oh, he's in this too.
I had a feeling.
Him and H.G. Wells.
Oh yeah, that doesn't
Number
surprise
4.
me.
I think this is gonna. We're not going to be able to get too much farther than this. George W. Bush's science advisor, Paul Ehrlich, who we just talked about, the population
He was
bomb.
Bush's science advisor?
I didn't know that.
Either did I.
Each person we add now disproportionately impacts on the environment and life support systems of the planet. Listen to the words they use. Life support systems of the planet. Remember when we were kids, we called this the world? Mm-hmm. It was the world. We didn't call it the planet. There's something really insensitive about that. Something impersonal. Something really scientific and
it puts it on par with all the other planets.
It's cold and not very hospitable.
Nope.
Okay. This is number 5. U.S. Supreme Court. Oh. Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Oh, Darth Vader Ginsburg?
Yep, there we go. I knew you were gonna chime in on that. She said, frankly, I had thought at the time Roe was decided. That's Roe v. Wade. That was the 1973 monumental Supreme Court ruling that made abortion the nation's law. Frankly, I had thought that at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and particularly growth in population that we don't want to have too many of. And again, these are humans judging how many humans there should be. What makes them so special? I mean, they really do think they're special. And they really think you and I are pieces
They're
of...
elites.
And I'm going to say a Russian word. They really think you and I are pieces of говно. Figure what that means in English.
I think I didn't get that far in Russian. I think I can figure that one out.
Okay. Number 6, a United Nations Population Fund report entitled Facing a Changing World, Women, Population, and Climate had to say this: no human is genuinely carbon neutral, especially when all greenhouse gases are figured into the equation.
God.
You know, if that wasn't so sad, it'd be just hilarious. Al Gore, that's Al Gore personified. Do you know Al Gore has got $200 million in his checking account?
Carbon credits.
Carbon credits. Selling his TV station to Al Jazeera. God, what an upstanding guy that is.
Yep. Great vice president.
This one's coming from David Rockefeller. Who can tell where this one's going to go? Rockefeller says he's one of the main New World Order Illuminati characters that you'll ever want to run into. He says the negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident. There it goes again, planetary. Mm-hmm. Did you notice that? Jacques Cousteau. Now, here's one that I wouldn't have expected to be on this list, but oh well. He says, in order to stabilize world population, we must eliminate 350,000 people per day. Whoa.
In the Antarctic Ocean, we are seeing the humpback whale in its natural habitat.
What are we going to all dump them into the Mariana Trench?
There's room.
Yeah, there is. Oh, and here's another beauty. This is from another really nice guy, CNN founder Ted Turner.
Oh God!
And again, they throw out these just these numbers. I don't even know where they. He says a total population of 250 to 300 million people, a 95% decline from present levels would be ideal.
Okay, before we continue, to quote Andrew Wilkow, socialism is for the people, not the socialist. You can apply it to this.
Of course. Well, we're like I said again, we're all cattle.
But the thing about it is you get a lot of these people who are idiots, and I include Barack Obama in that because he's a puppet. They think that they're going to be exempted from this. No, they're not. The people who started the French.
I think somebody as high up as Obama will be exempted from it.
Well, but come on, look at the French Revolution. Robespierre started with the Jacobeans. He eventually they turned on him.
Well, people like Chris Matthew and Rachel Maddow will not be exempt. They will be first in line for the guillotine.
The only thing I ask is I live long enough to see it. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, they'll be the one in front of you at the guillotine, and then you'll be next. But you'll get to see it, all right. And we'll save that little story for another time too.
No kidding.
Anyway, number 10 is Dave Foreman. He's the Earth First co-founder. Oh, this ought to be just a wonderful little nugget here. My 3 main goals would be reduce human population to about 100 million worldwide, destroy the industrial infrastructure, and see wilderness with its full complement of species returning throughout the world. Yeah.
Obviously, Dave Foreman was not related to Red Foreman from that 70s show, because Red would say, "Shut up, dumbass. Stop being a dumbass."
Yep. Number 11, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. You can be assured this one is one that he's not going to live by, but he's going to put on the rest of us. He says, "If I were reincarnated," this is lovely. This is really lovely. He says, "This is the Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. This is the royal family. These are the people that have been interbreeding for the last 2,000 years, from Charlemagne forward, or probably even before that. Some of them actually think they're related to Jesus Christ, and this is true. If I were reincarnated, I would wish to be returned to Earth as a killer virus to lower human population levels."
Okay.
How sweet is that?
Has he been tested for stage 1 Alzheimer?
How sweet is that?
What is he, like 100 now?
I don't know.
He's in his 80s. Because the Queen's in her 80s.
But I know they're all trying to stay alive as long as they can, to postpone their trip.
I mean, the Queen Mother lived to be over 100.
To postpone their trip to hell. David Brower, this is number 12, first executive director of the Sierra Club. This ought to be really sweet, too.
No kidding.
Childbearing should be a punishable... Oh, man. Childbearing should be a punishable crime against society unless the parents hold a government license. All potential parents should be required to use contraceptive chemicals, the government issuing antidotes to citizens chosen for childbearing. Antidotes. The government issuing antidotes to citizens chosen for childbearing. So in other words, they should have contraceptive chemicals, and then the government would then decide which ones should have children, and then they would give those people who have the chemicals in them antidotes so that they could conceive. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
This goes back to the turn of the 20th century eugenicists.
Well, we're getting into that.
I know,
right?
Margaret Sanger.
She's number 13 here.
Oh, God.
What
number are we up to?
Isn't that a fitting number for Margaret Sanger? 13?
Okay. What are we? Did you start at 22 or from number 1?
Started from 1. We're at number 13.
Okay.
This is Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger. Oh, I love her. She says the most merciful thing that a family does to one of its infant members is to kill it. Now that's in quotes. There's no nothing. It looks like it's in context. There's nothing to.
Well, based on what I've read on her in the past, that doesn't surprise me that those words came from her lips.
And not to be outdone by being number 13, she's again number 14, where she says birth control must lead ultimately to a cleaner race. which a lot of people don't realize, she was a very big racist. She and Adolf Hitler loved Margaret Sanger, by the way. She didn't like black people. She really didn't.
That's why she started Planned Parenthood, folks. It wasn't because she was benevolent and wanted to help.
She was malevolent. And
Exactly.
still is. Okay, number 15. This is Princeton philosopher Peter Singer. Oh, I know him too. He says, so why don't we make ourselves the last generation on Earth? If we would all agree to have ourselves sterilized, then no sacrifices would be required. We could party our way into extinction. No sacrifice would be required. What does he mean by that? Does he mean abortions? Does that what he means by sacrifices? What do you think, Scott?
I'm not quite sure.
You think he's just a drug crazed hippie, or
Read
what?
it again.
So why don't we make ourselves the last generation on Earth? If we would all agree to have ourselves sterilized, then no sacrifices would be required. We could party our way into extinction. Sacrifices. Okay, I didn't add the S onto that before.
What he's saying is, let's do it. Become the last generation and just have a big party.
Somehow somebody
until we're all gone.
Somehow somebody has decided that there's only a certain amount of people that should be living on Earth. No. The reason why people suffer on this Earth is because of corrupt and evil governments. Plain and simple.
Do you realize that the last 50, 75, maybe 100 years, families have gotten smaller? But what did God say? He said, be fruitful and multiply. He didn't say, only up to about 4 kids. No. He said, be fruitful and multiply. There are those that would argue that populations have gone down, families have gotten smaller because we're not in as much of an agrarian society as we used to be, where we used to have big families to help tend the farm. No, it's because of stuff like this. People have bought into it. That's why.
Now we're at number 16. This is Thomas Ferguson, former official in the U.S. State Department Office of Population Affairs. I didn't even know that we had population affairs.
That's scary.
I didn't know that.
And
I knew the UN had stuff like that.
By the way, before we continue, Soylent Green is people.
There were people.
Just think about it, guys. Look it up. Charlton Heston, Edward G. Robinson movie from the 70s.
Mr. Ferguson says, quote, there is a simple theme behind all our work. We must reduce population levels. Either governments do it our way, through nice, clean methods, or they will get the kinds of mess that we have in El Salvador, or in Iran, or in Beirut. Population is a political problem. Once population is out of control, it requires authoritarian government, even fascism, to reduce it. Ooh, I got chills.
Population getting out of control. Okay. Would you say a fair definition of population being out of control is where the population exceeds the country's abilities to support it?
Of course.
Okay. Think about this. Yeah, we got a buttload of people on this planet. Do you know how much of the Earth is undeveloped?
Do you know they say that you could fit the entire population of the world in Texas? Now, it wouldn't be very comfortable, but...
But I mean, there's so much of the world that's undeveloped.
Of course
We've got the land. So why isn't it being developed? Because governments are preventing it from happening.
This is all evil crap. This...
Sustainability.
And it's sustainability. Again, I'm going back to the spiritual. This is somebody who doesn't like humanity very, very much, who wants to do away with it, who wants to kill it.
Or they feel guilty for being
And who are
human.
the people that are going to implement it for this guy? Those people that believe in him. The bearer of light, the light god, Lucifer, coming down from heaven.
And
the one who gave Eve the apple.
And useful idiots who think they will get a reward of some kind, but will be,
No.
if not first in line, second in line to get the guillotine.
You're going to end up where he ends up. Okay, number 17. Mikhail Gorbachev.
Uh-oh.
Mikhail Gorbachev. He says, we must speak more clearly about sexuality, like we haven't, contraception, about abortion, about values that control population, because the Ecological crisis, in short, is a population crisis. Cut the population by 90%, and there aren't enough people left to do a great deal of ecological damage. Do you notice what they say? They talk in percentages because they don't want to really talk about how many people they're going to have to kill. We got 7 billion people in this world. You know what 90% is? 6.3 billion people. Mm-hmm. How are you going to kill all those people? And that's what they're saying. You don't. I mean, think about that. How do you get rid of all those people?
You know, we need to bring this world together. A good alien invasion.
Don't laugh about that.
I know.
There's a guy out there named Russ Dizdar. Is it Russ Dizdar? I think it's Russ Dizdar who actually talks about that the coming deception. You know, whether you believe it or not.
Is that something you heard on George Norrie's show?
Yeah, he's been on there before. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Anyway, it's a coming deception where I won't go there because I got to stay on topic here. Number 18, John. He's a French name, so I'll probably screw it up. John Guillebaud, professor of family planning at the University College in London. He says the effect on the planet of having one child less is an order of magnitude greater than all these other things we might do, such as switching off lights. An extra child is equivalent of a lot of flights across the planet. Oh, so we're gonna devalue, we're gonna equate life with the switching off of a light. Anyway, here we're getting close. Number 19, professor of biology at the University of Texas at Austin, Eric R. Pianka. He says this planet might be able to support perhaps as many as 500 million people who could live a sustainable life in relative comfort. Human populations must be greatly diminished and as quickly as possible to limit further environmental damage. See, they're using we're going to have a show. I don't have enough time to do it right now, but they use the environment to screw everybody up. Who's living a bad life? Yeah, there are people living a bad life. They're living a bad life because they have corrupt governments, and most of the governments that are corrupt are running the UN. All right, I'm on.
When's the last time someone became the General Secretary of the UN that was not from a third world nation?
Never.
You got Ban Ki-moon?
Kofi Annan.
Ban Ki-moon's from where? He's from Korea, South Korea,
Yes.
right? Okay, that's not a third world nation.
Well, might as well
Kofi
be.
Annan, who was before him? I can't remember now.
No, I forget them all. I don't even pay attention to them. Though.
I mean, yeah, I mean.
All right, here's number 20. This is out of the mouth of U.S. Secretary of State, hot babe that she is, Hillary Clinton. This year, the United States renewed funding of reproductive health care through the United Nations Population Fund, and more funding is on the way. Boy, this sounds promising. It's going to be so sweet. Let me finish. The U.S. Congress recently appropriated more than $648 million in foreign assistance to family planning and reproductive health programs worldwide. That's the largest allocation in more than a decade since we last had a Democratic president, I might add. And who might that have been?
Her husband.
Oh, boy. In name only. Okay, number 21. Clinton advisor Nina Fedorov. Oh, boy, she has a Russian name, so there's probably death and something has to do with death and destruction there. We need to continue to decrease the growth rate of the global population. The planet can't support many more people. Well, that was kind of boring. Could you have just said, we need to put a bullet to the back of the head of 9 out of 10 people? Okay. Oh, and we've got a couple more minutes because this is going to hit. Number 22, the first of the 10 Commandments on the Georgia Guidestone, which I'm going to read here. Can we do that, Scott?
Yeah.
It'll only take me a minute. This is the first of the 10 Commandments on the Georgia Guidestones. It says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Whoever makes these decisions, I have no idea. And I'm going to read you what the Georgia Guidestones say. Hold on a second. in case you don't know, there are, and a lot of people don't know this, there are these monoliths in Georgia that kind of anonymously were erected, and they look like Stonehenge. They're Stonehenge. They're granite. It's a granite monument, and they have 10 guides. And I wanted to go into more detail, but since we're getting low on time,
Why don't you just read them off, and we can do that next week.
I'm going
into detail.
And there's 10 messages on the Georgia Guidestones. It says, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Boy, those are broad. Number 3, unite humanity with a living new language. One language.
Esperanto.
Number 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. That's the introduction of a one world religion. That's what they're saying. Because they talk about that, by the way. Mm-hmm. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Okay, who couldn't be for that?
But who defines what fair and just are?
Well, that's the point. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. No, but then you're not ruling internally. You're ruling externally. Mm-hmm. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court.
Like The Hague?
No, they're playing with language there. What they're saying is, basically, this is a one world court. This is a one world government. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. What? Is this coming from the UN? Let me say that again. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Whoa, okay. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Okay, again, whatever that means. These things are so broad. Number 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Now, that's very telling right there, because that goes back to number 4, where it says, rule, passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 9 says, prize truth, beauty, love, seek in harmony with the infinite. Who's the infinite?
They won't come out and say who it is. Most people say God, but...
Well, what God? Number 10, be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. They said it twice.
You mean like after an Earth Day celebration?
Which goes back to number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Number 10, it says, be not a cancer on earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature.
They were written by horoscope writers because they're so vague and can apply to anyone or anything.
Yeah. And again, I was going to read from Ephesians 6:12, but you already did it today. But why don't I repeat it?
Yeah.
And we'll end this broadcast
Okay.
with this. This is from Ephesians. This is Apostle Paul wrote this, by the way. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's the Apostle Paul in Ephesians 6:12.
Anyway, that wraps up another show for this week, folks. But never fear, we will be back here next Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be getting some new theme music soon, because when we post these up on YouTube, by the way, you can go to our website and download each show, or you can go up to YouTube and download them from there. But we're going to get some new music because they're kind of dinging us for using copyrighted music. They do it with anyone. So if when you're up on YouTube, there's some pieces missing at the beginning and end, that's why. We have to, get rid of them. Anyway, I'm going to leave you with some Stained.